Hello there. Today's topic will be about the digestive system. Okay. As I mentioned before, I wanted to do a blog about the physiology and anatomy. Anatomy will have to wait for a bit because I need to try to improve the way I take videos, and maybe I could perhaps show some photos, because with physiology I could explain how is the process of it, but with anatomy it has to be all photos because it's more of memorization, right? Whereas with physiology you have to understand it. Okay, so we're gonna start off. I'm gonna be doing systemic anatomy, so it's portion by portion. So I'm gonna start with digestion, like I said. So with digestion, it takes there's two phases, right? So the digestion and absorption, right? In the digestion, there has to be an ingestion to happen, right? For these food to be absorbed. Whereas in absorption, it has to also we have to also eliminate, right? Egestion. So we're gonna have to eject whatever residue that's happened during the um, digestion and the absorption phases. Okay. So I'm gonna start making using some analogy that will hopefully explain this in very layman terms. So what happens is usually when we eat something, let's say we eat a cracker, right? So that cracker is made of flour, sugar, whatever. Um, it's carbohydrates. So you see the edges of it, right? So if we were to swallow that like that, we will be hurting some soft tissues around from the mouth going to the end point, which is the anus, right? So, well, it doesn't reach really, but I'll explain. But the point that because it has that ridges that could actually initiate some sort of irritation. I feel irritated now, and my throat. Sorry about that. So to avoid that, the salivary is a factor that helps in this process. So let's say we eat a good meal with a steak. I love steak. With Caesar salad, I also have Caesar salad, and maybe baked potato or rice, for instance, right? So everything in there except for water and salt, and you have a water. You cook that with water as well, or you mix it with water. Everything is comes from like a living cell, right, or a dead cell, right? One way or the other. Maybe the salads from a living cell. The meat we have to cook it, right? So these meat is a muscle of a human being, right? So our body needs nutrients, right? So we need carbohydrates, we need the fats, right? And we also the lipids, and we also need proteins and nucleic acids, right? So for the carbohydrates, we always have to turn this into, like, the body will turn them into a simplest form, right, of nutrients that our body can turn it into a human RNA or DNA that, but our own RNA, our DNA will instruct how to be able to transform these nucleic acids into nucleotides, right? So it's like a process, but we're not gonna touch it. We're gonna have it separately. But I'm just explaining how these are all simplified, the nutrients, so that our body can um, absorb them, and easily digest them and absorb it, and then excrete it after. Okay, so like I said, so that meal it's composed of all living cells and dead cells. So we're gonna eat that, and it's gonna be our own DNA, or our own RNA will transform it into those things, right? So for carbohydrates, the simplest form will be monosaccharides, right? So anything disaccharides or polydisaccharides, our body will just um, cannot digest that or absorb that, so it's just gonna be a residue, right? So it's just going to exit into our small intestine first, and I might close the door. It's called um, the large intestine, which is also called the colon. It will exit. It will do its exit bye bye from our body down to the sigmoid, down to the anus. Okay, when it's ready to be expelled. Okay, I don't have a note, but I have it in my phone because, like I said, it's big because of the time. I just don't have the time. But what I'm trying to do is that I'm trying to do a blog that could help students or people that are studying, and this could be a recall for me as well. Okay, what I remember, what I not. I'm going to talk about two types of because with the digestive system, some organs are involved, right? Obviously, our oral cavity, we have to ingest it through our mouth, and our larynx and pharynx are involved, right? And then also we're gonna involve our pancreas. It's involved the liver, and the gallbladder, and all that are involved in this system. I'm gonna so having said that some are involved. So pancreas, I'm gonna be talking about a little bit about pancreas, so what I can, because this has a big factor in this system. So a pancreas, is an endocrine and exocrine gland as well. So it has dual dual role in our body. So what is an endocrine gland is usually excretes hormone. Anything that a gland that excrete hormones into the bloodstream. Okay, an example will be our thyroid gland, right, and then the type of hormone thyroxine, right, and then sorry, and for the exocrine gland, remember that for exocrine gland is anything to do with ducts. So example will be saliva. So so it secretes the the hormones going through all the ducts, through the duct, not into the bloodstream. And best example would be salivary gland, the saliva, salivary glands. Okay, sorry, I do have a little bit issue about pronunciation. There's some words that I cannot pronounce well, and I have to take my time, and this is one of them. Sorry about that. So that's one of the example, and I'm gonna use that example to explain because I have to sort of explain in the mouth. So glands are really important in the area of the mouth and the throat as well, right? In the neck. To be honest, we do have 600 glands in our body, and in our neck we have 160 gland alone, right? So I did a video about that, about removing the tonsils. It's not good because nowadays they're realizing that it's really helpful. It's not just like the appendix. It's there for a reason. God created it for a reason, and what's in tonsils are macrophages, right? So it's like our first defense. Sorry, it's our first defense for any foreign bodies that's coming into our system, in our body, right? Especially, let's say right now, COVID, right? I'm gonna make a video about virus, very simplified. Everybody's making a video about it, so I'm not gonna, right? So just very simplified, just because it's kind of related to this, but I'll have it separate. So that alone is our first defense line, because it's one of the biggest gland in our area, neck area, right? So the parotid gland, right? Let's say it secretes the saliva. We're talking about saliva, the salivary glands, okay? So you could feel that around here, this area here, right? And it secretes all those saliva that will help us in the initial process of digestion. The digestion is happening already in the mouth, especially for carbohydrates, right? It's actually digesting in our mouth because the saliva, and all that is enzyme, and it helps to break down right? And we will, again, like I said, there will be a video of anatomy, but it's just hard right now. But feel free to check the, the anatomy of the mouth, the anatomy of the alimentary canal. If you wanted to have a visual, but I think it's very common that the mouth, I could go step by step later on. Okay, so I'm gonna go through my notes, and I'm gonna start with um, the blood, the video. My phone takes a lot. What else can I? Well, it's taking so long. Okay. How do I do this? Okay. Mm. Okay, I wanted to mention one thing about okay, so this one. Very briefly, I wanted to talk about the overall embryological development of the digestive system. Okay, so during the fourth week, while being in your mom's womb, the mouth and anus develop, forming a continuous tube, which is the alimentary canal. Okay, during the fifth week, the yolk sac constrict off from the midgut, and endodermal buds begin to develop from the alimentary canal and project into the surrounding mesoderm at certain locations. Okay, so I'm gonna start the topic. Okay, I did a little bit of the history now. Okay, so I'm gonna be talking about the regions of the alimentary canal. Okay, so that's the mouth, right? And then the pharynx, and then the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, and the large intestine, right? We're gonna do process by process, right? Of how it's the food's being ingested, what's happening step by step. But I wanted to mention that digestion is happening at the small intestine, and absorption is happening at the large intestine, which is also called colon. Okay. Um, okay. So the mouth. We do have the lip is called labial. Okay. Just keep that in mind. And anything lingual will be with tongue, related to the tongue. So those two words. So the labial frenulum is a very important aspect of the mouth. It's when you lift your lip, your labial, your lip, you'll see that it's separation of from left to right. And also, I'm going to be talking about a little bit about the teeth, tongue, the hard palate, a little bit. Okay. Okay. The roof of your tongue, when you put your the roof of your tongue, the roof of your mouth, where you put your tongue, where you feel it's hard. That's just composed of bones and just the skin, right? And we also have to talk about skin a little bit because because there is skin there, right? And so we're gonna also be dividing this into four quadrant, right? The upper quadrant, the right, just like the heart, right? The right upper, and the right lower, and the left upper, and then the left lower. Okay. Um, so after the hard palate will be the soft palate, and for the upper quadrant we consist of the maxillary where the teeth are, and then the lower portion will be the mandible, right? So if you were to go to a dentist, if they put the injection on the maxillary area, which is the upper teeth, you won't feel as much numbness in the tongue. But where if it's in the mandible area, because they have to, because the trigeminal nerve, right? It's the optic, maxillary, and then the mandible, right? The nerve. So they're gonna go through the mandible, which is gonna also affect the tongue. So that's why you feel like your tongue is numb when you go to the dentist, when they inject it into the lower. Okay. Okay. I mentioned the division, but I'm gonna mention again. So the mouth, the pharynx, esophagus, and the stomach, small intestine, and the large intestine, and then the anus. Okay, and okay, there's two portion of the lips. This is the superior labial, right? And then the inferior labial, right? And then the cheeks, the cheeks involved is the buccinator muscles, right? Um, it's that, you know, we can do this, or we can blow, we can suck, um, and these two are the muscles that are involved, the buccinator, okay? It's called buccinator, buccinator. Okay, and then the gingivae, which is the gums. Those are have a big involvement in the oral cavity. So it consists of the oral mucosa. So it's non-keratinizing epidermis and underlying dermis. Okay, so with the skin, I want to talk about briefly, and where our body is the biggest integumentary system too. Is the skin, right? So it's composed of epidermis and dermis. So epidermis is where we is a very superficial. We slouch it off on a daily basis, actually. But the dermis is composed of all these, the sweat, the ducts. You will be under there, and then before it, the adipose tissue. Okay. I'm gonna go on my notes, and it's just too small, but hopefully I can, um, this is briefly, so I'm just gonna mention what is important. Okay, so I'm gonna be talking about the teeth. Okay, so parts of the tooth. Um, okay, for the teeth. Okay, okay, so we will have different type of teeth, and I'll explain that quickly. Unfortunately, I won't have any photo, but there's an animal coding to it, right? And that's why we go to the dentist if that's already been worn out for some reason. Um, you know, um, they'll have to put some, I don't know, either gold um, thing crown, or silver, or I don't know the material. There's a dark. I have lots of issues with my teeth as a kid. I'm always in the dentist as a kid and a doctor because I'm asthmatic. So those are my two favorite places as a kid. Anyway, so having said that, it's coated with enamel, but the inside part is like bones. It's hard, right? And then underneath there's that little area where where usually when we have cavities, all of the bacteria goes in there, and that's why they get rid of that. They scrape it off, right? And then the dentist will scrape it off, or a dental hygienist will scrape it off, and we will fill it with I don't know the material, but they will fill it up so that it will take away that pain, right? Because some teeth have either one canal, root canal, or two root canal, so depending, right? So that depends on the type, right? If it's canines, they have one root canal. I know that molars, we have three molars. The third one will be the wisdom tooth. So some people will only have two. Premolars, we always have two, but although babies don't have premolars, and we have the incision, the precision, and how with dog, they do have like a very how do you call this, protrudence of their precision tooth. It's very how do you call it's very stressed out. It's more also sticking out more. If I find the term later on, I will to you. But going back, different part. I don't think I'm gonna mention the different these are for dentists, and again, it's I can't explain it anyways. The how the teeth is pointed to this. I apologize. There's pictures that could give justification to that. Okay. Um. Okay. So, perhaps like I said, you know, I will be talking about more so of okay, before I proceed, sorry, about the okay, for the milk teeth. You know, when when we're born, you know, we're gonna start growing our milk teeth or our temporary teeth, so-called milk teeth as well, during 6 months, right? And then when we start growing our permanent teeth, will be 6 years of age. So just keep that in mind, 6 and 6, right? Just to differentiate. Oops, it's gonna close. Okay. What else important here before I go to the next? I think I'm just going to cut this at this, and then I'll go for the next part. Um, because this will be composed of, again, you know, digestion and absorption, right? So I'll have two parts. Okay. Yeah. So far, I think I will have to go to the part of the digestion.